We are approaching the year 2024. You would think that airline safety is at an all-time high, but surprisingly, that is far from the truth. Despite advancements in technology and rigorous training, according to the Federal Aviation Administration, there were nearly 50 near misses in the month of August alone, meaning those planes were about to face a catastrophic accident. Now, I don't know about you, but the thought of nearly losing your life is a gut-wrenching and absolutely terrifying experience. It could impact you for the rest of your life, and knowing that day could have been your last is truly chilling. Although no major fatal accidents had occurred in a decade in the United States, these near-miss cases have quietly been on the rise, and most aren't even widely publicly reported. The scary part is that most, if not all, of these cases are due to human error. Analysis of government databases on aviation discovered that there were nearly 300 near collisions in a 12-month period. Millions of people board the plane every day, and the United States airport system is touted as being the safest of all countries. These staggering statistics and independent interviews with air controllers and pilots suggest that it's only a matter of time something disastrous occurs. One of the biggest challenges that airplanes experience, and contributing factors for these extreme near collision cases, is the fact that there is a widespread shortage of staff post the COVID-19 pandemic, when airlines were forced to lay off workers and cut back airplane routes. To illustrate that stark shortage, in May 2023, only 3 of nearly 300 airline facilities had enough staff that met the FAA and union regulations, approximately equating a 10% decrease in workers compared to the last decade. On top of that, the nationwide shortage also forces the remaining staff to work 6 days a week, with some workers clocking even 400 hours of overtime. This alone would definitely impact a person's mental health and work quality. To corroborate this, workers anonymously voiced their concerns, stating that they felt as if enough wasn't being done to improve safety conditions, using the words unsustainable and dangerous in their interviews. The long, grueling work hours has forced many to jeopardize their own health for the sake of keeping their jobs, some air controllers even taking alcohol and medications to mitigate the stress and lack of sleep. They reported an increase in mistakes and risk-taking. We're going to dive into some real cases of near misses and explore what went wrong and how catastrophic the event could have been had it not been remedied. On August 7, 2023, just after 5 p.m., a catastrophic mid-air collision was about to ensue at the Phoenix Harbor International Airport when 2 Boeings were nearly feet apart from one another. Both planes combined carried 315 people on board. It is said that in the event both planes crashed into one another, it would have been the largest aviation disaster in the United States history. What had happened was that a controller on duty instructed American Flight 1388 to turn right when it departed the airport. When they communicated this, however, the pilot on the plane restated the controller's command incorrectly back at them, and the controller did not catch the mistake. Instead of departing right, the pilot went left and came onto the same pathway as a Southwest flight going to Austin. Another controller, thankfully, spotted this horrifying feat and immediately radioed to the pilot, warning him that there was a plane right there. At that point, the commercial airplanes were horizontally less than a mile apart from one another and vertically a mere 300 feet away from each other from colliding. Only a few more seconds needed to pass by, and the collision was undoubtedly going to occur had it not been for the second controller's urgent warning. This is an example of where a single instance of miscommunication could have cost the lives of hundreds of people on board both planes. It's a terrifying thought how one man's mistake could have impacted so many lives. I wonder how that controller was feeling after this. There was another horrifying case of miscommunication that could have ended fatally for all on board. United Airlines Boeing 777 drastically started to lose altitude after shortly departing from Hawaii, to the point the aircraft was literally nose-diving straight towards the Atlantic Ocean at terrifyingly fast speeds. At that point, the aircraft was just merely 800 feet from crashing into the ocean. A plane flying at that speed into the ocean would have certainly ended tragically for all passengers and crew, just due to the impact alone. Passengers were reportedly screaming on board as the plane quickly dived down, as if on a roller coaster ride. Thankfully, the captain was able to remedy the error done by crew members just in time to save everyone and pull the plane back up. The investigation reports that there was miscommunication amongst crew members on what flap setting the captain wanted the initial climb to be at. The flap setting is important because that is used to essentially change the shape of the airplane's wings and aid in either lifting or dragging the airplane. When they reached altitude acceleration, the captain announced the flaps to be decreased to 5 degrees, but the first officer misheard and thought he said 15 degrees. The flight speed and altitude were resultingly impacted, and the plane was diving directly towards the ocean at that point. The plane system alerted the pilots about the incoming impact, and they worked on pulling the plane back up successfully and resumed the rest of the flight without further hiccups or damage. But it must be highlighted and emphasized that they were unmistakably just seconds away from colliding into the ocean and annihilating not just the entire aircraft, but also killing everyone on board. The investigation occurred nearly 2 months after the event. United Airlines addressed the issue and stated that since then, both pilots received additional training and still work at the airport. The last near-miss case that I want to hit on is that of the John F. Kennedy Airport in New York on January 13, 2022, around 8:45 p.m. It was indeed an unlucky day for everyone on board both planes, which could have resulted in a fatal collision just at the runways. To put into perspective, an American 777 crossed the wrong runway at the same time a Delta 737 was taking off. 777 was supposed to land on the 3IL runway, but instead came onto the 4L runway where the Delta takeoff was occurring. The American airline pilots aboard the same plane misinterpreted the runways, and had no outsider intervened, a devastating, catastrophic collision would have occurred between the American and Delta planes. A controller on duty was the one who spotted this and quickly alerted the Delta pilot to cancel their takeoff roll. It was reported that Delta stopped its roll just merely 1,000 feet from where the American plane was crossing, making it a very close call. The transcripts released between the Delta pilot and the air controller illustrates the fear and then absolute relief once they realized that they nearly avoided a disastrous accident. All three cases are just a needle in the haystack of the plethora of near-miss aviation cases experienced on a day-to-day basis in the United States, a country that brands itself for being the safest in the world when it comes to flying. The shortage of staff, the overworked employees, and the lack of funding and technological advancements have made me personally side-eye the idea of boarding an airplane these days. Sadly enough, some pilots and controllers have voiced concern that it seems like it would have to take an actual fatal accident for intervening action to finally take place. Although nothing catastrophic to that extent has occurred in nearly a decade, these near collisions should be setting alarms off in people's brains to not take the event as just a mere accident or mistake, but to take action from these events to improve the aviation system altogether. Have any of you ever experienced any near misses on a plane? Please share your experience in the comments below because I'm genuinely interested in reading about them. And as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting content.